This is Glass City Humanist, a show about humanism, humanist values, by a humanist. Here is your host, Douglas Berger.
We talked to Megan Sheldon, co-founder and CEO of Be Ceremonial, the world's first guided ritual and ceremony app. She believes even the non-religious have a need for ritual and ceremony, and her app guides people to appropriate and hopefully meaningful activities.
Glass City Humanist is an outreach project of the secular humanists of Western Lake Erie, building community through compassion and reason for a better tomorrow.
With us today is Megan Sheldon. She is a co-founder of beceremonial.com, which is a website and an app. She is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, but the app and the website's available to all. And thank you for joining us today, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and I kind of stumbled on your website, Be Ceremonial, because I am a humanist and always looking for rituals and ceremonies for secular people. And I was really interested in what I saw. Can you tell us just a little bit about Be Ceremonial and what it's meant to do for people?
Yeah, it all, as it often does, starts with my own experience of going through a lot of grief and loss and not knowing how to acknowledge and honor what I was going through. My husband and I had recurrent pregnancy loss while losing a parent. So it was a really difficult time, and we identify as secular, we're humanists. We didn't really know how to honor those experiences, not only at the time, but also moving forward. Like, how do we walk with grief? How do we acknowledge it on a more regular basis? And I got really interested in ritual and ceremony. I have a master's in cultural mythology, so that's my background. I'm a mythologist, and I love looking at the intersection of story and ritual and culture and history and time. And I think I always thought I didn't have permission or access to ritual and ceremony because I wasn't religious or I didn't belong to a certain institution. And I quickly learned that that was not the case, and that there are lots of universal rituals around the world. And I also felt free to invent my own, to create ritual that served me in that time. And that was about 10 years ago. I started creating my own rituals, my own ceremonies, and then for friends of friends and beyond that. And the pandemic hit, and my husband, who works in tech, he got laid off. And we thought, how do we make these tools available to others? Because we had a lot of people reaching out at that point. So we started to imagine a way to bring technology and ritual together and make these tools more available to anybody. One of our founding values is to be descriptive, not prescriptive. So we're not here to tell anybody what they should do or how they should create their ceremony. We just want to give them inspiration, a place to start, kind of a structure to play with, and then allow them to choose their own ritual adventure.
So you said that you were doing this for friends and friends of friends. So it's kind of like baking cookies. Eventually, everybody wanted the recipe. So what was the tipping point where you decided that you wanted to go and make this a business or provide a service for people?
I mean, it was the pandemic, definitely. 3 weeks into the pandemic, my husband lost his job. He was in a travel startup, not where you want to be when a global travel shutdown happens. And I had a marketing company, and that was really slow going. And we just really wanted to create something together. We wanted to be able to kind of leave our mark on the world. And we started to just imagine this rather than just a kind of on the side passion project. What if we were to turn this into a business and make it available to people around the world? It's still, we're 3 years in now, and it's, we're still finding our way and stumbling across it. I think we have a really different view of how to grow a business than the capitalistic model that we're faced with, especially in the tech world. So we're trying to grow slowly and intentionally and really work with people to understand where we're most needed, and how we can provide education and connection and community and all of those pieces within our business model. So it's difficult, but it's wonderful. And we've got about 4,000 people using our platform around the world right now.
Cool. And on your in your materials on your website and in the app, you define ceremony as a string of rituals, and that rituals for humans are important. Why do you think ritual is important for humans in general?
Yeah, so if we imagine a ritual as kind of a standalone entity that we can do on our own, we can have a morning ritual or a bedtime ritual, but we can also kind of string those rituals together to create a ceremony to mark a time of change or a rite of passage. Both the ritual and the ceremony are helping us acknowledge something that we're going through. They're not fixing it. They're not, making it go away. They're simply allowing us to bring it to the surface, acknowledge what we're going through, and then hopefully move forward without having to kind of shove stuff down. I think a lot of our culture is about, don't ask, don't tell, it's business, it's not personal. And that mentality has really hurt us. So from a mental health perspective, I think ritual and ceremony helps us bring things to the surface in a safe and contained way, feel it, and then move forward, knowing that we've given it some airtime, right? We've validated it in some way.
One of my pet peeves, I've been in the humanist movement for many, many years, and one of my pet peeves is that secular people tend to rehash and reheat theistic religious stuff like ceremonies and things like that. They like take out the God part, but they leave everything else. They want to meet on Sunday and sing hymns and things like that. Would somebody like me that is totally turned off by theistic religion, would I be satisfied by using your services?
I mean,
Could I find what I'm looking for? Put it that way.
yeah. And I think that's what we've created. We've created it's like giving you a giant restaurant full of different meals and choices, and you get to pick your own, course, and you get to decide what you want to eat and enjoy and experience. Obviously, I think that when a lot of the people that we work with, we have to kind of dismantle our own view of what ritual and ceremony is, because if we look at Wikipedia and the definition that shows up, or if we kind of have been raised with an idea of what ritual and ceremony is, a lot of us feel like it's not for us. But then we end up missing out on something. So I think back to when my husband and I wanted to get married. Neither one of us really wanted to do a wedding because the institution of marriage was just something that we didn't really connect with. But there was an opportunity at that point. His father had just been given a terminal diagnosis, and we wanted to bring his family from Sweden and my family here in Canada and do something that connected our families. And we knew this would be the only time that we would be together in whole form. So we threw out the wedding script, the wedding ceremony, and we started from scratch. And we thought, what is it that we're actually doing here? We'd been together 5 years at the point. We were common law, legally. There was no different that would happen for us. If we had just followed the kind of the regular path, but we decided to use this opportunity to really define some rituals that we would continue every year on our same anniversary. We kind of come back to this ritual that we created during our wedding ceremony and recommit on a yearly basis, rather than the kind of till death do us part language that can be quite harmful to people. So I think you will find what you're looking for if you go in with an open mind and curiosity, and also knowing that whatever you find, you can adapt to your own needs. There's no way that everybody's going to follow the exact same. I mean, that's what we're trying to get rid of, is here's the template and everybody follows it exactly. It's more of, here's a place to start. Add in your own story, your own values, your own beliefs, your own experiences that you've, places you've traveled, the things that you like to do in your life. Add that in, and that's what makes the ceremony your story.
And I was looking at some of the biography material on your website. And you are a humanist celebrant,
Yeah.
and humanist celebrants are professionals. They've been trained, licensed, get certificates. Are you worried that you're going to put yourself out of a job? Since that's how priests and ministers and celebrants make their money, is doing these celebrations.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of fellow celebrants kind of push back, and I'm still very busy in my own work as an end-of-life doula and a humanist celebrant and a ceremony and ritual guide. There will always be a need for people to want somebody to handhold them through this time, especially when it's, a grief-filled moment. And there's an opportunity for us to flex our ritual muscles and practice ritual on a more regular basis. So when something big or hard or complicated happens, we have a practice to draw from. And quite honestly, like, we have ceremonies in our app around infertility, around organ transplant, around divorce, around like all of these moments that are less visible in the public eye. Most people think about ceremony, they think about birth, marriage, and death. But there are so many moments in between that we can ceremonialize and we can bring attention to. If you get fired from a job, you might not want to hire a celebrant to create a ceremony for you. But if you had the tools to do something yourself, what would that do for your mental health, to be able to acknowledge not only what you might have got from that job, but also what you're ready to leave behind and burn in the fire and let go of? So for us, it's not about replacing anyone. It's about using these tools to become more ceremonial in our day-to-day life.
Now, it's one part of your service, though. You also do, as you said, you guide people, correct? You actually you just don't throw material at them and say, "Here you go, good luck." If they have questions or if they have questions that they need answered, they can come to you and do that, correct?
Yeah, and not only can they come to me, they can come to our community. So we've built a really robust online community. We hold monthly gatherings that are free for people to attend. And I firmly believe I'm trained in something called the art of hosting and Circle Way, where I believe that everybody in the room has something to offer and something to learn. So I am not showing up with all the answers. I'm showing up with my experiences, and I'll share them back with you. And you can share your story and your ceremony, and I'll learn something from that. And that will impact the way that we all move forward. So we really try to create that community place where people can, even in our online community this week, somebody asked, a friend of theirs was had breast cancer and was about to have a bilateral mastectomy, and they wanted to know how they could support their friend with ritual. And I didn't even have to answer. Right away, other people in the community were saying, "Oh, you could do this, you could do this. I've done this, and this is how it worked." Or, "I've had a mastectomy, and here's what really would have helped me at that time." So that's the storytelling part that we're really trying to encourage. For a lot of us, we've been so removed from this world that we're just getting our feet wet. We're just stepping back into these waters, and it takes a village to be able to make the changes that we want to see.
For more information about the topics in this episode, including links used, please visit the episode page at glasscityhumanist.show.
And what is like one of the most interesting or maybe strangest thing that people have wanted to have a ritual for?
One of my favorites and most powerful ceremonies that I was a part of, I worked with a group of women in the US who were all about to turn the age their mother was when their mother died. And so that day had been seared in their minds forever since it happened, right? I mean, one of the women, she was 2 years old when her mom died. Her mom was 32. And here she was about to turn 32, knowing that was her mother's death age. What do you do on that day? What do you do the next day when you're now 1 day older than your mother ever got to live? For the most part, in our secular kind of individualistic society, most people wouldn't do anything. Or if they did, they would hold it really close to themselves, and they might not share. They might not let others know. Most certainly, not a lot of people would be hosting a ceremony for themselves or their family or their close friends. So these group of women came to me, and we all worked together on each individual story on, okay, what can this person do? What were the symbols and meaningful moments and memories that they can draw on? And how can they create a ceremony to mark that day and the next day that they are 1 day older? And this woman over here, this was her experience. How do we curate and customize a ceremony for her that feels like something that will honor this transition? A lot of us have negative and difficult stories with grief and death. When somebody dies, you might have a lot of anger and resentment. How do we acknowledge that within a ceremonial context? So for me, that was one of the things. I did that in the midst of the pandemic, so it was all virtual, and it opened us up to this idea that there are so many invisible moments that we have no idea how to navigate, and the magic and power of community when we come together and brainstorm and give each other support. That was quite wonderful.
Yeah, I kind of probably wish I probably would have had that too. My when I reached the age my father died, I still thought about it. I didn't do anything for it, but it still, got in my head, and I was thinking about it. So yeah, that probably would have helped me too at the time.
And my advice to you would be, there is no time frame. I've worked with somebody who had an abortion 30 years ago, and we created a ceremony for her now to honor that experience. There is no determinate time when you have to do something. You can still create that ceremony and reflect back to that day or imagine now. It doesn't have, you don't miss your chance. I also do a lot of do-over ceremonies. So people will go to their parents' funeral, and it doesn't feel at all like something that they would have liked, or it didn't bring them any kind of sense of peace or support. So a few years later, they might have another funeral, they might have another celebration of life, or they might redo that ceremony and get it right this time. And knowing what they know now, there's no time limit, there's no maximum number of times that you can do this. We're in the Wild West here a little bit. We get to just kind of define it for ourselves. And I think that's the beauty of the humanist movement, and kind of moving away from the prescribed notion of what we have to follow. And I will say that with that in mind, there is still very much a place for traditional, rich, historic ritual and ceremony. And there is definitely a huge value within our framework, where we're not appropriating from different cultures. We're not taking things that don't belong to us and trying to mask them and sell them back to people. We're really mindful and respectful of Indigenous practices from around the world, and how we can look at ritual and ceremony and as a human experience, not just as a religious or cultural experience.
Now, your website, Be Ceremonial, it has some tiers, right? I mean, you have a free tier that people can try out, and then if you get benefit out of it, then you can go to other tiers. Do you have a lot of people that are paying money to be part of your community?
Yeah, I think if in comparison to hiring a celebrant, which is quite a high-end experience for a lot of people, our number one goal with Be Ceremonial was to make this accessible. We don't own this material. This is something that is part of all of us. I always say we have ritual in our bones. We're not here to teach you. We're here to help you remember. So we want to make this accessible to people. And with that in mind, we're also trying to build a business, and we're very values aligned, and we're trying to build the kind of business that we would like to see in this world. I think I'm in Canadian dollars here, but I believe we have free, which we give lots of access to lots of rituals and ceremonies and workshops and gatherings and interviews in our app. And then you have a monthly or a yearly option. And I think it's $12 a month or $10 a month US, or $52 a year. So it's really affordable. That's been a number one goal for us. We don't want anybody to feel like they can't join because of finances. The other magical part of when you have a membership, when you are have a subscription, either monthly or yearly, you can gift as many ceremonies as you want to other people. So with your subscription, if you have a friend who had a miscarriage, or a friend who lost their mom, or a pet, or is going through divorce, you can quickly kind of create a ceremony and send it to them, and then they're invited for free to go through that experience and have that gifted. That thing that we do when somebody is going through something hard, and we're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Should I get them food? Should I get them flowers? What if you give them the gift of ceremony? You give them some rituals to kind of help acknowledge what they might be going through. That for me is what I'd wished I'd had many years ago.
Now, earlier, I had asked you about the most interesting ceremony that you participated in. What is the most popular? I mean, which one do you get most call for?
Yeah, it's surprising, maybe, and also not given our demographic. I'd say 90% of our users, our community, are women, between the ages of kind of 40 and 65. And it's the sandwich generation, like myself. I'm raising young kids and dealing with aging parents. And so we have it kind of coming at us from all angles. The most popular ceremony is the croning ceremony. So crone is the third chapter in a woman's life in mythology. So it's about after you've had kids, or if you never did have kids, and you kind of step into elderhood, you step into this third stage of life. Traditionally, here in Western culture and in other cultures around the world, women are often kind of cast aside in this time of life, right? We get too old, we get too gray and wrinkly and all of that. So this ceremony, the croning ceremony, is about how to celebrate this third chapter, how to acknowledge your wisdom and step into this with more awareness and power, and knowing that you have these gifts to share. So we have a lot of people around the world really interested in that ceremony.
Is that kind of related to the old adage, the old crone? Is that kind of where it comes from or part of, or
Yeah. So before that, even before that old adage, the crone was this beautiful, wise, wisdom keeper, knowledge keeper within community. We looked at a lot of pagan communities, and the elder women were revered. And then came the kind of rise of patriarchal thinking, and women kind of became cast aside. And once they were past their childbearing years, the old crone, the narrative shifted. And there's some really fascinating literature that looks at this, but suddenly this old crone was old, decrepit, and teeth missing, and hair, and hunchback, and all of the ugly things
yeah.
that we started to associate with old age. And I think as an aging woman myself, and I'm raising daughters, I want to be able to shift the narrative of what it means to get older, because it is a hard thing, of course. So your body changes, but it is also an amazing thing. So the more we can, use ceremony and ritual to acknowledge the aging process, we've also got a menarche and a coming of age ceremony in the app. So how do we help young people kind of step into adolescence? The same way as how do we help adults step into elderhood?
Just kind of change the subject just slightly. I just saw an article the other day that somebody was complaining that in the UK, they don't recognize marriages from celebrants, humanist celebrants. Is it that way with Canada as well?
So very interesting topic, and it could have. I know that my Humanist Society of British Columbia is fighting things right now. And every province in Canada is different. But here in British Columbia, I cannot legally marry someone unless I belong to a religious entity. There is the Church of the Metaphysical that I can join, and I don't connect with that, so that's not my place. So often when I do weddings, I invite my clients to go to City Hall, and for $75, they sign the paperwork, and then I create whatever kind of wedding ceremony that they want. I've done weddings on boats at the bases of waterfalls, on the beach, swimming in the ocean. We've done all kinds, but I typically don't focus on weddings. I typically focus on end of life. I create a lot of living funerals. So for people that know they're going to die, we create a ceremony that they can attend before they die. Here in Canada, medical assistance in dying is legal. So I work a lot with the MAID community on how do you create ritual and ceremony when you know you're going to die, that last day, those last moments afterward. How can families support themselves and each other during that experience?
Yeah, I know. We have a lot of different laws concerning marriages here in the States, and it just amazes me that they'll accept somebody that gets a $20 internet certificate, but not somebody who actually took classes and got licensed, and they just happen to be a humanist celebrant. It just boggles my mind sometimes.
It does and it doesn't. I mean, I recently learned through the Humanist Society in British Columbia that there's still 6 communities in our province who open their city hall meetings with prayer. When I learned that, I couldn't help but shake my head. Here, I think we live in one of the most progressive, secular, neutral, inviting places, and yet that was still happening. And I think about all of the people that I know, and very few of them identify as Christian. And so, what message is that sending? But yeah, it's part of why I belong to the Humanist Society, so I can help kind of shift that narrative and really remove that idea of church and state, and stand up for what I believe in and for what I believe others probably believe in too.
So, looking into the future, do you have like big plans for Be Ceremonial, or are you pretty much set where you want it to be, or you plan on expanding anywhere or doing anything like that?
Yeah, I am a dreamer. I am a big visionary. I will never be set. It will never be done. I'm a lifelong learner. I think for Johan, my husband, and I, it's just the two of us right now. And we would love to build a nice small team and grow this. I have people reaching out all the time for different types of ceremonies. And I'm a big believer in, if I don't have that lived experience, I want to create that experience with somebody who has been through it. So we've had a lot of people reach out around gender transitioning ceremonies. How do you support somebody who's gone through gender transitioning? And I haven't been through that. And so I would like to find people out there who have, and get their knowledge and their lived experiences to be able to craft and offer rituals that would be supportive. Again, it's a choose your own ritual adventure. So you don't have to do all of these things, but We've had I've been working recently with dementia experts on how to create ritual around dementia. So if you have a loved one and the first time you see them when they don't remember who you are, they haven't died yet. So it's weird to grieve, but you are grieving. You're grieving the former relationship that you had with them. And how can we start to acknowledge those things on a more regular basis? So there will continually be more ceremonies, more rituals, revising things. I'm a big believer if people share feedback within the app, if there's something that's triggering or upsetting, or they're not quite sure how to do it, they let us know, and we get right in there to try to solve it and try to support them in different ways. So it is technology, but it's very much hand and heart led. So we're right behind the scenes supporting people with what they need.
All right, and Megan, if somebody wants to check out your Be Ceremonial, how do they reach you?
Yeah, beceremonial.com is our public website that you can kind of explore and poke around. We're doing a really great initiative right now working with companies who want to add Be Ceremonial as part of their wellness plan, like their employee benefits and their group benefits. So if you're, a company that stands behind mental health and you want to make this available to your team, your volunteers, your staff, your contractors, we're doing a lot of that right now. So most of the information is there. You can download the app in the app stores, set up an account for free, and poke around and just get a sense of who we are. We also host monthly gatherings online, so you're always welcome to join one of those and meet me and meet some of the other people in our community. And if you're interested and you want to join, then come on in. We're really excited to be. I think we've got 14 countries around the world right now with people. So it's been quite phenomenal to see the ripple effect of this work.
Well, Megan, I really appreciate you joining us today and telling us all about Be Ceremonial. And like I said, I was very interested in it because, like I said, I'm always looking for ceremonies and rituals that maybe I hadn't thought of. And it was really good that you were with us today.
Yeah, well, thanks, Doug. And like I said, we need more men in this space. It's part of what Johan, my husband's, trying to do too. I think naturally as women, we might do this in our communities are kind of designed with ceremony in mind often. But I know from Johan's experience of losing his dad, like it's really hard to find ways to create that ceremony for himself and for his friends and his community. So if you do end up creating a ceremony and want to share the story back with us, I would love to be able to highlight that, because I think we learn through what we hear and the stories that are told. So the more we share our stories, the more normal it will be to acknowledge when we turn the age that our dad was when he died.
Yeah, and guys like me, we're not that too far away because we have tons of rituals and ceremonies when it comes to sports. So it's not that far. It's like right across the street. Just got to get it there.
Yeah, you got to bring that emotional piece in, I think, and just kind of, bring it one step further, the intentionality of it all. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we all have ritual in our lives, and I think that's been a real big awakening for a lot of people. So thank you for inviting me and for sharing your story too.
Thank you for listening. For more information about the topics in this episode, please visit the episode page at glasscityhumanist.show. Glass City Humanist is an outreach of the Secular Humanists of Western Lake Erie. Sholey can be reached at humanistswle.org. Glass City Humanist is hosted, written, and produced by Douglas Berger, and he's solely responsible for the content. Our theme music is Glass City Jam, composed using the Amplify Studio. See you next time.